We are back with more action here in Hearthstone Masters Tour Seoul. As you get a look at the PC Bong, which is slimming down with each passing round. Welcome everyone to the continuation of day number 2's broadcast. My name's Frodan, joined by Gio. And together we're going to be bringing you guys the next match. Do we know who we are broadcasting, Gio, by any chance?
I'm not quite aware just yet, but I am going through round 9, and most of them look like they're done already. I'm quite curious to see Zim on stream because he has been top of the standings in terms of having a perfect score and also the best tiebreakers. He is playing Mage though, but I want to see what 9-0 Mage play looks like.
Yeah, that's right. In a field like this, I don't think going to 9-0 is an accident. It's very much a very difficult field to get through, and when you're playing Mage, you often have to be very in tune with your deck, and as well as have the fortunate draws that's required to win any kind of card game tournament.
Did just get word that we are going to be watching Casie versus deads17. Deads was on stream yesterday, and Casie as well, I think, and Casie is another Mage player on the Reno Mage, whereas Deads is aggro rogue.
Ooh, well, that's difficult to say the least for the Mage, because I played a handful of the aggro rogue, and I think it's very good against Mage. It would have actually been probably my deck of choice if I played in this tournament.
Yeah, with Sinister Strike or without, Frodan?
Oh, with all the Sinister Strikes.
Love it. Okay.
Maximum amount of Sinister Strike going on. All right, so let's go into the game here. We're going to provide coverage of round 9. If you want to follow along with us, battlefight.com/HS Esports. As Casie versus deads17, only one player can win this series and roll into round 10 in a good position to potentially make the top 8.
Right. Taking a look at Deads' particular rogue list, he is running Zephrys the Great, which I like to see because you just take advantage of Myra's Unstable Element, emptying the deck, which means that you don't have 2 copies of anything, so Zephrys is active. He's also got a 1 of Bloodsail Raider in there, just to have, I guess, something on turn 2 that feels okay. Personally, I'd rather play a Fairy Dragon in that spot, for example, because it often means you don't have a dagger when you're playing something on turn 2.
Yes. So a lot of players have been gravitating towards having like a lot of 3-mana plays in this deck. Henge Clan Thug, Evil Miscreant, SI7 Agent. And I think that almost all of them have one thing in common, which is it gets a little clunky to play. And I think with cards like the Generous Mummy being in the hand here for deads17, he's got even a clunkier hand than usual.
Yeah. So
like
speaking of Zephrys, Casie definitely taking Wild Growth makes a lot of sense because he has the Reno in hand already. So coin Reno on turn 4 for the Mage. That just seems like something that's pretty unbeatable for aggro decks in general. That level of a board swing, and also Casie has the follow-up to go along with it.
Yes. When people first saw Reno Jackson, they thought that this card was not that good. They said, well, you're going to deal 10 damage. How good can that be? Well, it turns out clearing your opponent's board a lot of the times in the mid-game is extremely powerful, especially for aggressive decks like this. And now, Deads, with that Dread Corsair draw, almost relegated to just going face the rest of the game in order to try to win. Because it feels like no matter what he develops, he's going to be really far behind.
Yeah, I completely agree. Not just with the fact that Reno clearing the board is huge, but the 6 health stat line is actually very problematic for many aggro decks. Especially Rogue, they tend to deal their minion damage in increments of 4 with the Waggle Picks, Eviscerates, Vendettas, and such. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, that ain't a damage Stickatron. That's just regular Stickatron.
No injuries here. Completely repaired and completely locking Deads out of this game, I think.
The highs of highs and lows of lows as well. He got Meteorologist and he got the damn Stickatron.
Well, he can sap it. Maybe I got a little bit too ahead of myself, but Casey's board is definitely still way ahead of Deads. And yeah, it will just be a matter of Deads having to figure out how he gets that 19 damage face.
Whizbang the Wonderful. Well, it's not going to be in effect here because Whizbang is at the beginning of the game, but it would be kind of funny if that was the case.
Would be. So Voodoo Doll, Frostbolt, and Ping would provide a full clear here for Casie, and then he can roll into Tortolan Pilgrim for the next turn. I've been listening to you guys from the talent room. You keep saying Pilgrimist. Is that a word?
Is it not a word?
I don't know. Isn't it just a pilgrim? And then, the
yes,
act of
but
being
if you
pilgrim?
follow along this ideology along the lines of the party you would align yourself to as a Tortolan in the democratic society of which Tortolans participate, how would you classify and identify yourself on your census and registration form?
It's a lot of big words. This sounds a lot like how I would write essays in classes where I didn't really
Yes,
know
with
what I was
double
talking about.
spacing and you increase the margin to 1.1 inch. I know all the tricks.
Right?
You're dodging the question.
What was the question, though?
If you don't know, I can't help you, Gia. Generous Mummy comes down, and it's not going to be very good in this situation, given that Casie now has even cheaper cards across the board.
Although Generous Mummy with the Rush does provide the perfect stat line to take a value trade onto the Mossy Horror. Deads, I think, still doesn't want to expend this Waggle pick because it's more important that it goes face than killing the 3/3, I think, and he can maybe set up a better bounce target for it later on.
Yes, the damage from the Generous Mummy is threatening in itself, but Casie with that Ray of Frost isn't in any rush to do that. Ooh, Flame Ward is an interesting concept. Ooh, maybe even Counterspell as well to stop any Myros play.
And at worst, it stops an Eviscerate.
Mm-hmm.
So with this particular hand from Deads, the Counterspell is actually pretty backbreaking, but I'm not sure if Casie would put him on that read. Of course, there's like things you would rather not Counterspell, like Backstab still available.
Wow, Bloodsail Corsair, or Bloodsail Raider, excuse me. I mean, this deck seems to be more of the minion-generated threats. I guess it does work out okay if you're able to stick them. It's just that in this scenario, Deads needs a lot more than just a 2-drop to pull himself back in.
Right. And he's going to start with the Witchy Lackey first, testing for Entity. And it's a debate between evolving the Mummy, which of course removes the ongoing effect, or the Miscreant, but maybe he's just going to go for both. And then it's tough to say because Harbinger, so that's just always a meme.
Wait.
But so he's not bothering to respect
okay,
Counterspell.
Okay. We didn't see the secret Casie selected.
Yeah, we didn't.
I think if
it's
this
either
is the case,
Bender or Flame Ward. No.
Yeah, Flame Ward seems to be the likelihood, unless we see the Backstab tested right now. And it is the Flame Ward.
Right. So Deadly Poison is also an available option to get rid of the Stego, but with the Scimitar and second Waggle pick in hand, Deadly Poison could get more value. He's also got this Captain Greenskin.
Oh, wait, hold on. The Necro mechanic death without triggers twice, including your Waggle pick. So it bounced 2 of his minions. Wow.
Pretty funny.
And then because Harbinger Celestia bounced back, so Casie is free to play like bigger minions onto the board.
Sure, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, also hilarious would have been if the Takan stayed on board and got bounced, and then the lackeys could pick up 4/4s. I'm living in a dream world.
Yeah, I mean, that Harbinger Celestia staying on the board would have been a pretty big deal. Deads would have been able to push 5 more and maybe make this game a lot closer.
Right.
But for now, it seems like it's slipping out of his grasp.
Yeah, he's forced to go for a Ziliax, Hook Scimitar, Deadly Poison type situation, so that would put 6 damage to Casey's face and then 12 over 2 turns, and then there's still the Eviscerate, and for lethal, he just needs to try and think of if there's any way he can die. So he'll take 2 fatigue next turn. Ziliax puts him to 11, and we don't see a way from Casie to currently clear the Ziliax without damaging it. So I think that's in a pretty good position, actually.
And he does have the puzzle box of Yogg-Saron as a way to bail himself out. Can also play Caligos with that. Is it bad idea to play Caligos with puzzle box of Yogg-Saron?
I don't think it's a bad idea at all. And there's also the potential that Caligos gives you, say, Ice Barrier or a more consistent, quote-unquote, way of getting out of this situation. But maybe in most cases, Yogg-Saron makes more sense.
Oh, interesting. Wow, this is a pretty slow approach.
Yeah,
I think I really like the weapon, given that you had 12 damage through the Scimitar and Deadly Poison, and you had...
it was actually a little bit off, right, with just the Eviscerate. Yeah, he still needed to push some form of minion damage.
That's fair.
Okay, so I can get behind this, but now we're going to have some fun.
Looking to see if he can clear. Uh-oh, wait. Oh!
Uh-oh. The lifesteal target as well. Betrayal?
Oh. Oh no, wait, stealing damage. That's going to heal him.
Oh!
Ziliak stealing
Disaster!
damage from Betrayal actually heals his opponent.
Disaster!
Okay. Ah.
Oh, man.
All right.
No! Okay.
Clears it.
Okay. I think Casie can't complain about this outcome because it cleared the board. It's not like he's in a rush to kill Deads. Of course, it would have been great if he could have just given Deads a shorter timer. But as long as the board stays clear, I think Casie is fine.
Right, and Casie has the acidic Swampoos now, which is very big if Deads choose to go for the Hook Scimitar and Captain Greenskin.
Right. And I think he's almost forced to go for that. It's just a question between Scimitar and Waggle Pick, right?
Yeah,
but we can fit in the Deadly Poison if he plays Hook Scimitar this turn. So
it is more damage right now.
which sounds good in Deads' position.
I'll say it's what, 21 damage just from this weapon?
Noble Sack and Ivor and I were potentially annoying for Deads there, but he doesn't have the luxury of playing around any secrets.
Ziliak's off the top.
Ooh!
I think that locks it up. We do have Colossus of the Moon.
But he has to get rid of the Ziliax this turn in order to prevent it from healing more. So it would involve Eviscerate and then Waggle Pick face. But the Eviscerate triggers the Never Surrender.
So you need a Waggle Pick first.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Waggle Pick, then Eviscerate. Yeah. It doesn't change any damage.
Yes. The only thing for Deads to consider is Redemption as a possibility.
Oof. That seems like it would completely lock him out of the game. So if I were in Deads' position, I'd just play like Redemption is not a possibility.
Yes. It doesn't seem like if Casie has Redemption that you'll ever win anyways.
Exactly.
So you have to try and beat the other options that are out there. Oh boy. That's the wrong choice.
Yeah. And it is a mechanical error, just objectively a mechanical error, because you always Waggle Pick first in that situation.
If it is Redemption, you have the ability to dagger and then like save the Waggle Pick hit.
Okay.
So you could have equipped Waggle Pick second.
I see.
But I do think that it's still an unwinnable position. So I agree in the sense that strategically, I don't think it's necessarily a good choice.
Right. That is my mistake there. So with that, that means Casie takes an unfavorable.
Yeah, that's a really big win for game number 1. And then if he has a anti-aggro list going into game number 2, it's supposed to help him a lot more. So that was like a really big win for the mage in this case.
Yeah, and I would say pretty much the dream draw for the opening few turns for Casie. Zephyrus into Wild Growth into Coin Reno just seems like what you want to do against aggro as Reno mage. So looking over at the secondary list from Casie, we see a lot of the usual inclusions like Bone Wraith and Cartoot Defender, which are just sticky, reborn taunts. And one of them has the upside of healing Casie. So I think this deck is actually pretty good against aggro in general, but that's more towards the board-based aggro. I don't know if it is consistent enough dealing with 2 Waggle Picks and 2 Hook Scimitars.
Or Sinister Strikes.
Right.
That's right. Reno only deals with the board. I don't know. Obviously, I'm kind of memeing, but like I was talking about it with Admirable yesterday, and Admirable was like, "Yeah, I like to play just damage stuff." He's playing what's the 8 mana like 5/6 that just says Battlecry deal 5 damage? He was playing. It was like Sea Leviathan
looks like
or something
some
like
type
that.
of dinosaur.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing as North Sea Kraken from the Grand Tournament, where it's just like a giant mini with Battlecry deal damage, and he plays that in Quest Shaman, and then he just hero powers with Heart of Veneer, and then just like hits the person for 10 damage, and he does it twice in a row. He's like, yeah, and I win. And it was funny because I was like, yeah, there's like a lot of decks that don't really deal very well with direct damage right now because everything is so border oriented with Rush, with sticky Death Rattle minions, either through Snip Snap or just Reborn. And people aren't considering damage from hand. The only thing that they consider with damage from hand is like Leroy Jenkins, and they think that taunts get in the way. So direct damage feels like a really powerful tool in the meta right now.
Okay. Purely because you said Admirable plays that, I'm going to present a counter argument now.
Okay.
Which is, I feel like Battlecry and Quest Shaman already has enough direct damage when you play double weaponized Wasp and you play things like Lackey generators. You got Kobold Lackey, and you can easily deal upwards of 12 from hand when the quest is active. So I feel like the 8-drop would be too clunky, but I'm only saying this
I
because
mean,
you said it was
he
Admiral
was
said
streaming
that.
himself in top 100 legend. I think he got to like top 50 before he stopped. So it's still like if you can get to top 50 legend with like a deck like that, I consider it to be a viable deck to ladder with.
I mean, you did bring up a very good point about just direct damage and how it might be undervalued right now. So I'll give Nathan that one.
All right, cool. You can clip that one and put it as his subscriber donation.
Pin it up on
later.
his Twitter as well.
That's right. All right, going to game number 2. We're about to get ready. So let's see if the rogue can turn it around. Again, I do think that there's some variations in the deck list that I'm personally choosing to go for more direct damage. One case, for example, that people are trying to do is instead of Bloodseer Raider, they play Fairy Dragon. And Fairy Dragon is like a really important tool, unless he's playing both.
He's got Raider in all 3 of the lists, I'm pretty sure.
Right, and that's probably just more because of the versatility of the Raider versus Fairy Dragon is pretty much just good against Mage, and not anything else.
Yeah, the secondary from Deads is the Togwaggle Scheme and Nomi package.
He's got another generous memory. Just want to point it out. Pharaoh Cat, the generous memory.
It always is very generous, this cat. There's 13 Reborn minions in Standard right now.
So, you know, like a 50% chance to get it.
Yeah, either you get it or you don't. Duh.
There's only 2 outcomes.
All right, so Deads has the option to coin out a 4/4 Edwin here or coin out a generous Mummy, but man, I don't think I'm feeling that generous.
Yeah, there's also a secret hidden option, which is coin into Hook Scimitar, but obviously Casie has everything prepared with the Acidic Swamp Ooze, and coin Scimitar does work a lot better when you have intention behind it, such as if you had Henchclan Thug in hand, or if you played, if you had a Dread Corsair, things like that.
Right. And the patience from Deads makes a lot of sense given that he had Deadly Poison and Backstab. So as long as Casie had played something on turn 3, he gets rewarded for holding on to Edwin. And now Casey's got a big fat 8/8 problem in front of him.
Finding Zephyrus is a very likely scenario of answering it, given that Shadow Word Death is a good answer to this 8/8. But now has to deal with Henchclan Thug, which, you know, again, I actually do like Henchclan Thug as a card. I just think that against Mage, you just want to be a little bit faster, and it does require some setup.
So there's the death option, which is pretty much guaranteed with this mana breakdown from Zephyrus, but in the meantime, Deads will be able to push the remaining damage. Actually, that Thug draw was really insane. 2 Scimitars, 1 Ooze. What wins? He's actually still going to hold on to it, though. I was thinking just... well, given that he couldn't get any minion development, I guess this makes more sense.
Well, yeah, so it's interesting to think about what's better to keep in the hand, a Deadly Poison or a Hook Scimitar, and you lose 1 attack on the Bloodsail Raider. And it's hard to argue both ways, but... or sorry, it's hard to say one definitively because you can argue both ways, but I'm inclined to believe that having 1 of each option is better than having 2 of the same one, so you have flexibility as opposed to redundancy, especially when it comes to weapons, because... Hook Scimitar with this requires 4 attacks versus Deadly Poison. Hook Scimitar can actually combine their damage into 1.
Worth noting that both these players are playing extremely fast. Casie, that's just the bread and butter for him, but I wonder if Deads is used to playing at this pace because he did go for the attack and then hesitate because I thought there might have been some consideration for going Myras that turn with the possible huge upside of getting your second backstab to deal with Ziliax.
Yeah, I was going to say this Ray of Frost draw is massive. Are you kidding me? It just seems to have completely stalled Deads' attack.
Yeah.
And now Myers has to pick up the pace, or pick up the wherever this board has left off with a dozen hit points left. It seems very tough.
It's about a Leroy and a Shadow Step away.
Well, yes, except there's an Ice Barrier played, so it's not as simple as that.
Also, the Hook Scimitar. Yeah, it would happen over several turns for sure. And in the meantime, Casie will have drawn into either more threats of his own or taunts. Because I assume this would be the anti-aggro list, which is playing the Bone Wraith, Cartoot Defender.
Yeah. Big pickup here on the sap, by the way.
Yeah. So now he's gonna chip away 1/5 of what is essentially Casey's 20 health.
This is an interesting decision as well from Deads. I feel like there is a chance here to actually go for the Myers Unstable element, given that it would have used all of his mana and set up follow-up plays to consecutively power spike. Now Casie will have a turn where he can potentially slow down an answer.
Ooh, the Reno. Between the Reborn, though, it's a little bit awkward. If only, like, the Reborn health was already stacked onto this board.
It's true, although he does have a free secret. Yeah, so this is kind of what we're talking about, where, you know, Deads now has to spend a turn afterwards to play Myers Unstable Element. And granted, Casie, of course, drew, like, the right cards to answer it, but now Deads is going to be in the fatigue situation, and will be taking a little bit extra damage, and that just shortens his clock a little bit.
Reno. Deads should be aware that that is Flame Ward, because I think the only spells in Casey's secret package are Barrier and Flame Ward.
That usually is the case, yes.
Right. So as long as he holds on to the Reno for a turn after the Generous Mummy has gone face, because it's not going anywhere else, I think Deads might be able to get there. Yeah, Eviscerate, that's just enough damage by next turn. So Casie doesn't have access to Yogg-Box because, well, actually he does, because the Generous Mummy will stick this turn. Oh, never mind, the Flame Ward. Keep forgetting about that. So yeah, the Yogg-Box won't be active, and crucially, the Pilgrim cannot pull it because it's in hand. So I actually don't know what Casie can draw to get himself out of this.
Is there some kind of taunt minion, perhaps?
That would work if there weren't double Eviscerate in hand.
Right. The 2 times Eviscerate seems to be too much. What about the Pilgrim Ist? The Polymorph Frostnova is not going to be enough, so Casie ends up going down here in game number 2. And again, the importance of Myers Unstable Element can't be understated. And also, you know, if Deads didn't pick up like damage, because we've been in a situation a lot where you end up picking up like a bunch of removal options or just a lot of weapons. It's kind of crucial that Deads picked up a lot of damage. But that's what the deck does. The deck has a lot of average damage per card draw.
I do find Casey's very last decision of going for Pilgrim over Kartut a little bit curious, because the Kartut locks out Leroy as a possibility for
right.
It doesn't. I don't know what the Pilgrim can lock out, and whether it can beat both Leroy and double Eviscerate, because that seems like the only reason to play it over Kartut, right?
What spells were in the deck besides the 3 that we saw? That you think he was maybe going for?
Flame Strike, but I mean, a taunt kind of accomplishes that better in terms of blocking minion-based damage, I think.
Sure. I mean, there weren't any minions on board except for the SI.
Yeah. So I'm not actually sure, because the puzzle box was in hand. I can understand going for exactly puzzle box, but I'll have to ask Casie about that one later. And he will know by that point that he would have been dead anyway, though.
Fair enough. However, it's kind of like what you said, where in the optimistic scenario, his opponent maybe had at best 1 Eviscerate, and maybe the walk to plank wasn't there, or like no way to get past the taunt minion efficiently, and that would have given him a fighting chance. Right now, I feel like when you play that Pilgrim, it's like a 0% chance to win, versus this gives you like whatever the probability is on the draw to not draw the removal or damage spells, rather.
I think it would have to specifically have been Conj Calling into lethal somehow for that to be better than Kartut, but I could be just reaching at this point. So
Conjurer's Calling would have been something, to say the least. It would have to require some very elaborate, like Conjurer's Calling to target the right thing and then get the right summons off of it. So also it has to land on his minions and not the SI7 agent. So very impractical, but in that situation, I do think that Casie was dead most likely either way.
Yeah.
Now we go into game number 3, and you know, very crucially, Casie is going to be on the coin here to stop Dreads' ability to coin things out.
Right. Although Dreads does have, like, outside of a Pharaoh Cat, basically the most decent start. And I think he top decked one, which is gonna pull a Generous Mummy. Wait for it, Dan. Oh, never mind.
Well, it's because you said it. Got the
That's how it works.
what is it?
So-
The wrapped golem?
Yeah, that's the most expensive one, the 7/5 that also summons taunts, I think.
Yeah, it's similar to
Yeah.
the obsidian statue, I believe, or obsidian destroyer from Warrior, where at
Right.
the end of your turn you summon a 1/1 with taunt, and it has reborn itself. It's a very powerful like arena presence,
Mhm.
given that you have a lot of value that can generate. But in a constructed environment, you're looking for a lot more when you're playing a 7-mana card.
Yeah, although in its defense, when the expansion was first had its limited release with streamers, I do remember a lot of them saying, "Huh, this is surprisingly annoying." Just when it's played on curve.
Yes, if you can be proactive with it,
Yeah.
it would be very effective. But in most cases, I'm kind of siding on the fact that compared to other 7-mana options, you're looking at Dr. Boom Mad Genius,
Mhm.
you're looking at Archmage Antonidas, you're looking at Luna's Pocket Galaxy. Oh wait, other 7-mana options seem to be really powerful in Hearthstone. You kind of want a little bit more than just playing a 7/5.
A real sneaky joke you got there, Dan. I think you're going to be getting a tweet from Ixar soon as well. Anyway, speaking of annoying, Casie did have a pretty good, in theory, answer against the Hench Clan Burglar with Ray of Frost and Doomsayer, but Duds had the Sap, which was exactly what he needed to maintain this board presence.
Yeah, that Doomsayer not going off in game number 2, you can see the impact of it. Very significant.
And assuming that Deds is still on his primary, the Sap is a one of there, so might be a bit annoying for Casie there, but you can't really complain when his entire deck is one ofs. Casie did set up for a good Zilliax on the follow-up. And he's still sitting on Ooze. He's had it every game against Rogue, which is very important.
Yeah, the Ooze is very crucial, especially when you factor in things like the Hench Clan Thug. SI seems like a very good option here too from Deads to stop any life gain from the Zilliax and also keep pushing the damage.
Yeah. Rolls into a wrapped golem on curve as well. I'm a big fan of that. There's an argument for going greenskin instead, but I feel like this type of board state allows you just to go for more minion pressure, and then he can waggle pick and then greenskin for the follow-up. If he's not already won the game by then, because Casey's down to 16.
Yeah, Casie dropping the acidic Swampoos because feels like he needs to at this point. Does have Blizzard and Doomsayer the following turn, which would be very good against this wrapped golem scenario.
True. And I don't think Deads has the luxury of trading despite the possibility of Blizzard, so I do like going face.
Fast game here, but that's kind of what Casey's MO is, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and even though in theory Deads has enough damage from hand to get there, Casie has this Arcane Keysmith, try and look for Ice Barrier. At worst, he can use Conjure Calling for an emergency look for taunt button.
I like this, playing Evil Miscreant to see if you can get the lackeys to help you in this scenario, and maybe for the future turns as well.
Yeah, Ethereal, pretty sick in Rogue because that can get Sinister Strike.
The ultimate card.
Only the most cultured of Hearthstone players play it. He did
Yes.
get the barrier, and he's able to ping off the reborn effect of this. So Casie effectively working with 16 health. Deads does have that much, especially with this deadly poison. So Casie needs additional sustain off the top or from the Conch Calling.
These are all kind of ugly. Pilfer might be useful, given that Mage tends to have direct damage. Okay, ends up going for Violet Haze instead, which was a buff card from the Rise of the Mechs event. Testing for all the counter spells. So no Mirrority, no counter spell. Grawl the Shark and Tyrion. Although, to be honest, he doesn't need more weapon damage.
It's true, but just having things on board coupled with the weapon damage makes it so that Casie needs to do two different things a turn, which is deal with the board and find health.
Oh.
Wow. So what is the perfect card here, Frodan?
Probably like another
Ooze.
Ooze. So that way you can kill the Captain Greenskin. But he does leave up 7 mana.
How does this not give Ooze here?
So Ancient of War is an interesting proposition as well. Your opponent's ready to use a sap.
Yeah. But the Siphon gets rid of the Greenskin and gets him that ever crucial little bit of healing.
It's true.
Casie just praying that Leroy is not available. And it's not in hand. Girl the Shark could eat the Leroy and then Death Rattle put it in your hand.
Except you bounce it with the with the
Right.
waggle pick. So it looks like Dead's instead setting up for a big Edwin Van Cleef.
Leroy.
Oh, he hits the Leroy.
It happened!
Well, good thing he didn't actually swing
yeah,
up the weapon
you're right.
afterwards.
The order was great.
Well, but that actually okay, and Polymorph has been used.
Yeah.
Casie looks dead to me. This rogue is very strong against
Mhm.
mage. It's probably the reason
Yeah.
why Deads is honestly at 7-1. If you go back to his match history, I'm sure you could look at how many mages he's gone up against. And I would guess that it's at least 5 of them.
So he's going for taunts on 3-drop. 4-drops have a slightly higher chance than 3 to get taunts, so he can still conj this Arcane Keysmith, but he would have to land both of them being taunts to get through both the Edwin and the Leroy, so
And they
very
have to
unlikely.
get past the waggle pick, and I
True.
think that's going to do it. deads17 showing to you how aggro rogue gets over the hump.
Mhm.
And that's right. That's what you want to do. You crush the mages. I love Casie, of course, but I do want to see some aggro rogue and some just general anti-mage strategies keep working out.
Yeah, very dominant performance from Deads there. I think he has shown a very, very deep knowledge of the deck. And I think Casie would know as well, as somebody who I think at heart is an aggro player, but had to go with the best deck for the tournament, which is
Sure.
Mage.
Yeah, and it's even though he's 7-2, his tiebreakers are still pretty decent. If he wins out, starting from round 10 onwards, he still is in a pretty decent spot to make the top 8. We'll update you guys on everything in the Swiss portion when we come back to the Hearthstone Masters Tour in Seoul, South Korea. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.